If you're just joining us, this is Fresh Outlook. Here's a question for you. What's in your wallet? Chances are a lot of plastic, and chances are you've got a big balance to go with it if you're an average American. Take a look.
Americans are known risk takers when it comes to their personal finances. Consumer spending accounts for more than 2/3 of the U.S. economic output. On the flip side, it helped push the economy over the recession cliff. According to the latest data from various government data sheets, every United States household owes, on average, $7,000 to a credit card company. Last week, even President Obama joked about having his own credit card declined at a New York City restaurant. Obama made the remarks as an aside while signing an executive order to make credit card purchases in the United States more secure.
Rich, I should mention, by the way, I went to a restaurant up in New York when I was there in the UN General Assembly, and my credit card was rejected. It turned out, I guess, I don't use it enough, so they thought there was some fraud going on. Fortunately, Michelle had hers. I was trying to explain to the waitress, no, I really think that I've been paying my bills. Even I'm affected by this. Thank you very much.
Students have bitten into a massive share of this debt pie as well. Since 2008, Americans have added about $100 billion of student debt annually to the balance sheet. Auto loans have revved up. The amount of outstanding auto debt is the highest it's ever been. According to data released by the Bureau of Economic Analysis, spending on cars has increased 35% since the recession, and all that green is going to new cars.
Back now on set with the Fresh Outlook think tank. Let me introduce you to them. Thomas Lavecchia from X Factor, Phil Rutigliano, a certified financial planner at Mahoney Asset Management, and Dr. Charles Steindel from Ramapo University. And let me start with you, Thomas. What do you think about the president's credit card getting declined? It seems like it's happening to the best of us nowadays because of credit card fraud.
Yeah, so essentially what's happening even with him, there's so much protection out there because of overspending and fraud that if you don't use your credit card enough, you can actually raise a red flag. But conversely, the problem is not that in this country. It's actually overspending, and the balances are now through the roof.
$8,000 on average, I read. Phil Rutigliano, what's your take on the average American having in their wallet a bill for $8,000 that often gets paid by people making minimal payments?
I think what's happening is we've come to the lifestyle of we want it now, and not looking at student debt but consumer debt. We go out and we spend and we buy now and pay later, and it's gotten us in trouble.
And it comes back to bite a lot of us. It came back to bite us during the housing bubble. Charles Steindel is an economist. What trends do you see happening in America? Are we healing? Are we getting better in America as a country and as a people when it comes to debt?
I think the data shows that all the way. That average you talk about disguises a reality. The New York Fed a couple of years ago took a look at the detail. Who owns the credit card debt? People in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. 3/4 of the people in the three states owe nothing on their credit card. Of those who do, the median balance is about $700. It's an extraordinarily small group of people who owe the big credit card bills.
And basically, those are New Yorkers perhaps working on Wall Street where carrying a $40,000 balance on your credit card is no big deal.
No big deal, and they earn the big income.
Exactly.
The point is it's matched by the big income. Now, in terms of trends, consumer debt fell off the roof after the recession. It's no surprise. People paid off their debt, people went into bankruptcy and wrote off debt. Since then, it's stabilized. We've had some times where it's crept up a lot, with the exception, I would agree, and that's a different subject, of student loans, which has grown fairly sharply over the country. And as to automobiles, the number you give, the 35%, sounds scary, but only like 2 cents of every dollar Americans spend is on new cars.
When it comes to consumers in debt, Thomas, what do you think the big problem is? Do you agree with Charles saying that it's really not such a big problem, that most people in this country have their finances under control? It's just a few outliers on both coasts?
I agree. However, some of the stats were showing that indebted debt, which is essentially people who owe long-term monies, is $15,000 per household. And you probably amortize it over X amount of households, probably a good portion that make up for the bulk of it. However, everyday Americans are buying things with money they don't have. The average mortgage debt is $150,000. The average student loans is $32,000, and the average credit card, let's say $7,000. So even if it's $700, even if it's a lower amount, there's still other responsibilities they have that's driving them into debt. How are you going to increase your net worth if you have a liability of $200,000 constantly hanging over your head?
Let me turn to our certified financial planner, Phil Rutigliano, to answer that question. One, let's talk about how do people dig themselves out of debt? How do they prepare a good financial plan for themselves and their family? Do they need the advice of somebody like yourself, or can they do it on their own?
I think going to it, getting advice from somebody that has been in the industry a long time is definitely a help. But I think not looking at the student debt, but if we look at the short-term debt, if we can curtail that, everybody needs a coach. Why not have a financial coach?
Absolutely. And student debt is the debt that almost everybody who's graduating college nowadays is facing. And in fact, we're actually hearing voices saying, you know what, too many people are actually going to college. We need some people who are actually going to be laborers and not necessarily the bosses. And those are coming from progressive liberal voices as well.
Now, I think I agree, and I think in some ways this gets to the gist of the problem. There are problems with people getting their finances out of line. I worked at the Federal Reserve for many years. The Federal Reserve has made massive efforts to educate people better on how to handle their finances. It's tough. It's a very hard road.
And it's also tough to dodge college student loan debt. I mean, because private universities want $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year or more.
But I think the question is, there's two things going on here. I think, first of all, the basic problem is people don't have enough income. If they have more income, the times have been hard. People don't have enough income to really afford the things.
So do we unleash the private sector, or do we come up with government programs?
Well, that's a much bigger question. Another
well, the economist, I figured. I know it is a very loaded question.
That's a very loaded question.
It is a loaded question with political ramifications as well. Let's turn to Thomas for just a second. What are your thoughts as you hear about the student loan debt and the fact that people need to make more money? It's not that they're spending too much. You know, it's that they're not earning enough.
He hit the nail on the head. So 2/3 of our economy is from this spending. So it's actually good from an economic standpoint. The big challenge is income has been flat for the last 30 years. So they're not making any more money. They're spending more money. And that's probably the crux of the issue. This actually would not be an issue if wage wasn't stagnant. But it is, and that's the main issue at hand.
Let's turn now to new ways of paying. Apple Pay. Apple came out with a new app this week where you can actually pay with your smartphone. What's your thought as we talk about Apple Pay, Phil?
Well, I think we're seeing different trends, and the market is constantly changing and looking for new technology. So that's just a sign of the times. It's going to take a while for that to grab hold. The retailers to use it, the consumers to use it. So I think, but we'll see a change. We'll see a change.
It'll also be nice to have your credit cards perhaps linked to your smartphone, where you don't really need a wallet, you just need your smartphone and it's all right there.
The other day I left my house, I was 3 blocks away, I turned around, went back. I couldn't live without my phone.
Exactly. I often say to people, which would you rather lose, your phone or your wallet? I think I'd rather lose my wallet. I'm not sure. That's a tough question. What are your thoughts as we talk about this, Charles?
I think I agree. It's a neat product, I gather, and it'll undoubtedly be used more. Does it make a major difference in spending? Well, it turns out Americans spend 40 cents of their spending is on healthcare and housing. I don't think the doctors are going to be taking Apple Pay in a while, and you're not going to be paying your rent through Apple Pay. So I don't think it's a game changer in how people are handling their spending and finances. It's something that's clearly evolved, just like credit cards took a while to get started. When they started in the 50s, it wasn't until the 70s that they became really universal.
So you see the two big woes of the economy is that people are paying too much for health care as a percentage of their income, and too much on housing as a percentage of their income.
Well, certainly health care. That's certainly the big one that's risen a lot. Housing has been pretty steady over the years.
Has it risen a lot because of Obamacare, or has it gotten better?
Oh, no. Well, Obamacare, if anything, and recently it's flattened off or declined a little. This is a trend that's been going on since about 1960, which is probably why you have to have something like Obamacare, try to contain the costs and make things better for the average person.
Okay, we're going to go to the break right now. When we come back, we'll have more on this. We're also going to have a lightning round from airbags to another White House fence jumper when we come back.